So we have a very exciting fireside chat. Mr. Haresh Aswani was supposed to be with us, but he is ably represented by Adesuwa Ladoja, who is the MD of the Lagos Free Trade Zone. She's a seasoned infrastructure development expert. She is also a member of the Nigerian Bar Association and a notary public of the Nigerian Supreme Court. Let's put our hands together for her. What an impressive profile that is. MD CEO of the Lagos Free Zone.
Thank you. Once again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I should say that the person who would have been sitting on my left would have been Haresh. But we are learning that when you get into these positions, even you yourself can't predict where you're going to have dinner or where you're going to sleep tonight. So that's the reality of life. And so I have the pleasure of speaking to a great sister of mine, Adesuwa, who is able to deal with as many questions as I'm sure I want to ask. You know, I mean, we hear of stories, of great stories, of how people come from outside of Nigeria to create great things that become great not just in Nigeria, but also become great globally. And we all know the story of Tolaram. I have had the opportunity to visit the Lekki deep sea port, and I've also had the opportunity to go around some key companies in the Lagos Free Zone as well. And I am completely amazed by the achievement of Tolaram. And I don't want to even talk about the other things until we get into the questions this afternoon. So my first question, Madam, would be, just help us. I mean, as I said earlier, we hear of these great stories of how companies are formed in Nigeria and they become great across the world. So what was the beginning of Tolaram like in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. So before we go into the discussions, I just want to apologize on behalf of Mr. Haresh Aswani. He will have loved nothing more than to be here today because he really loves to talk about the story of Tolaram and how Tolaram and Nigeria are intertwined. But like Mr. Frank said, at that level, as chief executive, newly appointed for the group, his schedule has just become a bit unmanageable. So apologies, and please manage me as a poor replacement. Secondly, I want to congratulate BusinessDay on this incredible achievement of being in business for over 2 decades. Anybody who has worked in Nigeria or done anything anywhere in the world knows how difficult it is to carry on something in a sustainable manner, continuing to improve the quality as we've seen BusinessDay do. So please give him a round of applause and all his team, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you.
Yes. So going to Tolaram, Tolaram is a family-owned, it started as a family-owned business, and is the 3rd generation of the family that is running the business now. And the relationship, the love affair with Nigeria started in, I think, 1977, when they were looking into Africa as the next frontier, and they looked at Nigeria, they looked at Ghana, and they looked at Ivory Coast. And it was Nigeria that felt like home. You know, Nigeria was what called to our chairman, Mohan Vaswani, to come and see what we can do here. So when the family came in here to business, initially it was trade, right? So business, selling, buying and selling essentially. And then part of what we were doing in Pakistan was textiles. So I don't know if any of you remember Aswani Textiles. So we started manufacturing textiles in Nigeria, but that went away after a while. So continued with trading, electronics, general goods basically, and that went on for a while with partners. And that went on to the 80s when, as you remember, Nigeria started having some economic difficulties. So some of the partners went away. But that was a time when Tolaram really had to show, where do you stand? This new country that you've come to, that you've been successful in business, what does it mean to you? And they decided, you know what, we see a future here, and we're going to stay here and weather the storms. And that was the beginning of the relationship. And of course, having such a big population is a no-brainer really for you to know that anything that we will eat, anything that we will use is going to be successful. So we started manufacturing, we went into business, and we are where we are now, moving from consumer products to infrastructure. And that's another interesting story. Most people told us, you are selling Indomie, and now you want to build a port. Why? But it's because we were selling Indomie, because we were distributing Indomie, because we were moving across the country, that we were able to know what the challenges of doing business are. And it's one thing to identify a problem. The most important thing is to put your feet in the game and find a solution to it, which is how come we found ourselves in the infrastructure space. We have Lagos Free Zone, which is an industrial park that essentially is like the culmination of all our experience in Nigeria. We've put together what we know that businesses need when they come to Nigeria to make a success of their businesses. And that's how we see ourselves, as a partner to the Nigerian government, always helping, always thinking, always one step ahead to figure out what is it that businesses need to thrive in Nigeria, and not just identify it and criticize, but to actually do something about it.
Thank you very much. It does appear as if for some people, especially for those who are friends who come from outside of Nigeria, they're just sitting down there and waiting for the next crisis to happen, because that catalyzes significant growth for them when the Nigerians are running to take cover. Maybe there is one or two things that we can learn from here. When there is a crisis, you need to open the window and look properly. Maybe there is an opportunity waiting for you to take an advantage of. From selling Indomie to building a deep sea port. What a wonderful journey. But I want to ask you, Nigeria has been through dislocations. You had indigenization, you had foreign exchange volatility, you have military coups. You just stayed there. Where is this strength from? And what can we learn? That in all of this, Tolaram just remained steadfast, displaying significant resilience. So tell us, what is the source of that strength for Tolaram?
First of all, yes, Nigeria has gone through a lot, but I think practically every country has gone through a lot in the last decades or so. The world is changing, everything is shifting, and it's either you are part of how we shape the future or you are shaped. And we see ourselves as being one of those who shape the future. We have to be in that space. And how have we been resilient? In the words of Pastor Jerry Easy, what God cannot do does not exist. That is the Tolaram mindset. Each and every one of us who works in Tolaram has an owner's mindset, which essentially enables us to look at a situation, look at a problem, and say, this is what we see as our purpose, this is what we see as our vision, this is what will be best for the people around us, and for our profitability, and for the country. So it's about shared values and about shared visions, and about ensuring that anything that we do, we put our values front and center, our values of commitment, our values of respect, our values of integrity, right? So anything you do, you should be proud to tell your grandchild when you get home that this is what I did today, and not be ashamed of yourself. When you go to your maker, you should not be ashamed of how you've represented him in the world. So essentially, it's just having honorable values, time-tested and honored values that really guide how we do our things day in and day out.
I want to take two questions together. We talk about resilience, and I wanted to ask you, was there any time at all when the Tolaram people look back and say, I think it's finished with us in Nigeria. We just have to, as we came, pack our things and go back. And also try and tie into this your experience dealing with government departments and government authorities when you were seeking to, of course, build the Lekki Deep Sea Port.
Yes. So Lekki Deep Sea Port is a very emotional story for all of us at Tolaram, because it was one of those things that, the timeline for the development of the project was so long. I mean, it is essentially the same age as my twin daughters, which is 23 years. Because we got the approval from the Presidential Committee in October 2002. My daughters were born in October 2002. So I call Lekki Port my third child, essentially. And, you don't develop a port, at least the way the law is set up in Nigeria, without government involvement. And it was particularly unique because we had the involvement of Lagos State government and the federal government through the Nigerian Ports Authority. So this was going to be a test case for the real essence of PPP. Government at two levels, as well as private foreign promoters. Initially, it was just Tolaram, but then it became Tolaram and China Harbour Engineering Company, because they were the EPC contractor, and then they eventually became shareholder in the port. So just having to ensure that all these different strengths are enhanced in how we develop the project, and minimizing as much as possible any difficulties or challenges that could come from these large partners working together was really what the whole thing was about. In fact, that's how come I started working with, my role was with government relationships, because we realized that we could have all the law, we could have all the technical competence, we had all the designs, we had all the engineers, but if we couldn't get everyone to work together, we were wasting our time. So we had to work together with integrity in a transparent manner, and we had to ensure that it was a win-win for everyone. And this was particularly important for the Tolaram shareholders who see themselves as Nigerians. It wasn't going to be a project where only the foreign investor benefits. Nigeria had to also benefit from the project as well. So it was very important to have all these on the table. Of course, because of the length of time that ensued, we now had a lot of changes in government regimes. We had changes in party, we had changes in ministers, MDs, DGs, you name it. So a lot of what we had to do was practically kickstart at the end of every 4 years to ensure that there was government buy-in and support and cooperation, so you didn't have to start all over again. And so it was a journey, I guess you would call it, and one that has come to a very good ending, because now the port has been in operations for 3 years now in the Lagos Free Zone. We are reaping the benefits of all the sacrifice and all the hard work and all the pain, all the trips, all the traveling, all the sometimes setbacks and disappointment. But it's standing there. And like I always told some of the regulators, Tolaram is not going to carry the port away to Singapore. The port is going to be here for our good, for eternity. And that's what we're enjoying now. So essentially, when you have a mission and you have a vision, and it's something that is going to be sustainable, enduring for future, which is how we define our purpose in Tolaram, anything that comes your way is a mere setback that you can, with agility, with God on your side, you can find a solution to. And we owe it to future generations to solve this problem so that we can put things in place.
Fantastic. I had said earlier that I'd had the opportunity to visit the port You know, one thing that interested me, I lived and worked in Apapa for many years, where, of course, we have the older port located. The day we were visiting the Lekki port, we were in a room when a vessel arrived. I didn't see the runaround that I see and saw in Apapa every day. In the evening of that day, some of the raw materials had left the port and were already in the factory in the Lagos free zone. 24 hours. When we were in Apapa and we were importing newsprint, it would take us 2 weeks to see the newsprint. This one, you saw products from raw materials that arrived the port the next day. It was such a thrilling experience for me. But let's move to another conquest of Tolaram, and that is the acquisition of Guinness. What gave you such audacity?
It was indeed an audacious one. And I mean, it took the whole world by surprise. But what I would like to emphasize was that it wasn't a spur of the moment. There wasn't anything like that. I mean, Guinness is such an incredible brand. And as far as Tolaram was concerned, it was an honor to have it in our portfolio. So we just, took on the challenge and visited, made their due diligence, started the discussions with the Adesuwa, because there's a long list agreement involved, so there had to be synergy between all of us. And one of the things that stood, as an advantage for us, even though we were in that sector before, is that we have long-standing collaborations with very, very reputable brands, international brands also. We're in partnership with Colgate. We're in partnership with Kellogg. Indomie is in partnership with Indo Foods. We're in partnership with Allah. So having these kind of companies as our collaborators made it easier for, the Guinness deal to go through as well. Yes.
Well, I'm sure you are holding back a lot of things. I'm not going to push further. By the way, Adesuwa is Benin and I am Benin, so you can imagine I'm not going to, be harder than I have been already. But I think it's important for us to really learn that while many of us are scrambling looking for cover, there are those who are thriving in Nigeria. I mean, the Guinness acquisition, the building of the Lekki ports for me are two things that stand out. Not to talk about Indomie, without which even children who school abroad will not leave after holidays until they get their suitcases filled with Indomie. So, great stories. As a Nigerian journalist, one painful experience that I have is when I am writing about Nigeria, usually very painful. You write about it and its story is just going until you remember that you are a Nigerian and it becomes painful. But when you hear about companies like Tolaram, I think it's all good. And I believe that government needs to do its best to bring more tolerance into Nigeria. You must agree with me that Adesuwa has stood herself, with the responsibilities that Haresh has, thrown upon her or trusted upon her, and she has discharged and acquitted herself. Please, a round of applause.
Thank you
for
very much.
Adesuwa Ladoja.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening as well.
Please kindly take a picture together. Yeah.
Oh, the mics are dropping.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together one more time for them. That was a wonderful conversation and fireside chat. Thank you so very much to you both. So before Lolade introduces our first panel session of the day, allow me to recognize the presence of Rimini Makama, who is the Executive Commissioner, Stakeholder Management at NCC, who is representing the EVC CEO, NCC, Dr. Aminu Maida. Let's put our hands together for Rimini Makama, Executive Commissioner,
looks like
Stakeholder.
people are tired already. Can we please put our hands together for her, please? Thank you. Thank you. All right.
So what's happening next, Lolade?
Yes, it's the panel session I've been waiting for. That
Me
I'm really
too.
very excited about. The one
Absolutely.
where you will get to listen